my great pleasure that I can present to you at the beginning of this Fireside chat entitled Understanding the Nature of Bias in Natural and AI Systems. We are going to talk today with a very interesting speaker and panelist, and that's going to be a dear friend of ours of the conference, Nisheeth Vishnio, who is a Bartlett Giamatti Professor of Computer Science and co-founder of the Computation Society Initiative at Yale University. What I wanted to say that artificial intelligence can dramatically improve the efficiency of our workplaces and can augment the work humans can do. When AI takes over repetitive or dangerous tasks, it frees up the human workforce to do work they are better equipped for, tasks that involve creativity and empathy, among others. With what has been said above, we need to have an ethical component in our mind. And when we say ethical, bias in data should be one of the first things, both technology and philosophy-wise, we need to think about. In this fireside chat, we should talk about what is the nature of bias, why bias exists, and how we may overcome it, as well as should we do it. And in the beginning, first of all, dear professor, I would just like maybe to say a few sentences about yourself and your connection to this topic.
Thank you, Alexander. Hello, everyone. So my name is Nisheeth Vishnio. I'm a computer scientist and mathematician by training. So what I do, generally speaking, is to look at these things called algorithms. And algorithms are essentially a set of rules which allow us to solve problems. So algorithms can be as basic as adding numbers. I mean, an algorithm to add numbers or to multiply two numbers or to say which number is a prime or not, and to as complicated as determining when you log into your social media account, what news articles, what feed to show you. So today we are going to be mostly discussing about this latter type of algorithms, which are in the realm of artificial algorithms. Artificial in the sense that human beings are creating these algorithms. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that even though these are artificial algorithms, these are algorithms which are created and designed by human beings. And so what I do, one of my areas of research is to try to understand the societal implications of algorithms. In particular, as Alexander mentioned, bias is something that has been observed to be rampant in these world of artificial algorithms, bias of all kinds. And it should not be a surprise because we are the ones who are designing these algorithms. So I think my work has focused in trying to identify how humans are embedding their values and their biases and other factors which are associated to being human into the encoding of these algorithms, and then how to mitigate these adverse effects, to design technology, to design algorithms which can work for the human good, as opposed to destroy the fabric of society, which it has the full potential to. And as Alexander said, I mean, these technological algorithms are there because they give us utility, economically they're efficient. So it becomes very important. So I'm happy to be here talking about this topic, which is very close to my heart. So
thank you so much, Nisheeth, for such a great intro for my first question, basically. And when we talk about this, we heard all the time the word. It basically become buzzword. It is real word, but also become buzzword because everybody says something is biased. But basically, I think that not many of the people really understand the word. What does it mean? So basically, I would like maybe to start with with the first round. What is bias? I think that it's very important for us if you would like to tackle from a more serious position, just to explain to the people the basic concept. So basically, when we say bias, how would you define it? Like, what does it mean?
Okay, good. So I would try to do that. But let me first preface by saying that the word bias, if you go back to what it really means, it means that if you feel that something is biased, what it means is that different groups or different individuals are being treated differently. If you, let's say, are at a restaurant and you feel treated differently by the, let's say, the restaurant manager compared to the person who you see sitting next to you, a thought might come to your head that this person or this behavior is biased. Okay. So at very, very generally, the word bias means treating different entities differently. When it comes to human beings have this intrinsic need for fairness, or at least this is one of the values that we have, we cherish, that we would like things to be fair. If you have three kids and you bring nine chocolates home, you would want to divide them equally. Otherwise, they will complain that you are not being fair. You are
To be
being
honest, like in
biased.
my family, my younger brother all the time took my chocolates. I totally understand what bias.
So, so we can start by defining bias in that context. I mean, a
Mhm.
division strategy would be fair or unbiased if it gives equally many chocolates to each of the three kids, which in this case is three because there were nine chocolates to start with. Of course, this is a very simple view of what bias is, and as things get more complicated, we have to go deeper into the meaning of what different treatment means. And in different contexts, this means different things. In some cases, we can talk about individuals being treated differently. So, for example, the example of a restaurant has more to do with a sense of individual fairness, that each individual would like to be treated by the society in an equal way, okay, or a restaurant in an equal way. But what what there is another end of the spectrum, which is that we all also belong to groups. I mean, groups like men, women, black, white, political inclination one, political inclination two, soccer lovers, tennis lovers, so on. So we also belong to these groups. And the sense in which I will be talking about bias in this chat is this latter one, where we look at algorithmic outcomes and how they impact groups. So, for example, if I was running a bank whose goal is to, let's say, decide who to give loan and who not to give loan, then what do I do? I ask individuals for some data about themselves. What is your income? Where do you work? How many years have you worked? And so on. So I collect a bunch of information from them. And then based on that information, I will come up with a rule, which is an algorithm, to decide whether this person gets a loan or not.
Yeah.
What is my objective? My objective is to make sure that the money comes back to me. I don't want people to take my money and run away, right? So now what may happen is that in my way of assessing who should get loan and who should not get loan, I might ask for things like, what is your education level? What is your income level? Now,
Yeah.
if it happens that certain groups of society have lower income levels, for example, I mean, not to offend anybody here, but in some countries, some societies, women are, historically, have to have to take care of the family, and as a consequence, they may not be earning as much as their male counterparts or
That's right.
their husbands, right? So the question is are these parameters which we are using to determine the ability of someone to repay the loan, are they unbiased in the sense that are they really an indicator? Or if the education and income of women overall is less than men, does that really mean that they will not repay the loan with same probability, for example? You see, so in that sense, when we look at a decision rule or an algorithm which is determining who to give loan and who not to give loan, the assessment of bias or the definition of bias will be to see once we feed in some input to this algorithm and see its output. Output is give this person a loan or don't give this person a loan.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And we can look at the distinction. So we can divide the input into, let's say, men and women, and look at how many percentage, what fraction of time it is saying that give this woman a loan, or what fraction of time it's giving give this man a loan, right? And if there is a serious discrepancy in these percentages, then you can say that the algorithm is biased.
Yeah, and when we are talking about it, I totally agree. But I think that you tackled very important topic, and that is, you said, yeah, in the end, like when we are looking, if the algorithm is not written, its algorithm is bad, like it's not, it's of course that the bias will occur, but that's not all. But like from my point of view, like, and that's one of the topic we're also going to tackle a little bit more in this talk as well. But when we are talking about sometimes I think that the word bias is there put for some job not being done great, like, or to dying, not some of the algorithms not being written good. So basically, you have written algorithm that is not doing good job, basically. And when you have this kind of algorithms, you can also say yes, the data was biased. And I think that there's also a little bit like technology incompetence in terms of like hiding behind the buzzword bias. So it's not everything is biased, but on the first place, of course, even what you talk about, yes, if you have like as the probability if somebody is going to pay the loan is not the only like is not the only the two major things shouldn't be what is the money what how much money some person exists, because there's like tons of examples that people with less money actually
Right.
pay much more loans
Right.
than somebody.
I mean, working at Yale, one of the main things Yale does is to decide who to admit, who not to admit, right?
Yeah,
And if you ask them, like so many students apply and a very small fraction of the students get in. So there is an evaluation process. And in that process, I don't think it is completely clear how to kind of decide who to let in and who not to let in. But in the end, there are evaluations. Sometimes there are even standard tests like SAT and so on, you might have heard of. So the real question is whether these tests, how well they correlate with somebody's ability to succeed. I mean, if that's what Yale is optimizing, let's say, right?
that's excellent.
So I guess in this case, if the banker is optimizing the probability that the loan comes back, then what does gender have got to do with it, right? So
That's
is
right.
is it something natural? Is there something in the genetics of being a woman that reduces their probability of
Of course.
paying the loan? Absolutely not, right? It's
Yeah.
how the society is constructed. At best, you can argue that. And even then, I think one has to take into account these factors when designing these algorithms. So that not to punish, so not to reinforce, so if we do not give enough loans to, let's say, women, then they may never be able to break out of these economic shackles that they have been kept in, right? So there's the reinforcement of this nature of this loop.
And
So
basically,
yeah, so I think in short, defining bias has to be context based, but I can keep giving you example after example of context and how the notion of bias differs in different contexts. But in the end, there has to be a precise mathematical way to talk about bias because algorithms live in a very precise mathematical world. So if we have to correct all these things, we have to be very clear about what
yeah.
are we talking about. But there's not a single notion of bias. I mean, bias means different things to different people.
Yeah, thank you for that. And basically, like, I would just like to keep it like going with this. We open one of the things. I think it is very interesting, and that is is there and where should be the limit of creating positive discrimination. I think this is interesting topic that you mentioned like before. Like, okay, if we don't create some kind of things that we can break the circle that is for sure is going to happen in the future, like my question for you, can this be the answer to like to talk about the boundaries of the limits where and how we should create positive discrimination, so in the end we don't end up getting something that is not in the end a good thing. For example, it doesn't if we set the bar, maybe if we're talking about the banks, we set the bar a little bit lower, there is a risk for banks like to not getting paid back, and if they're not getting paid back, they will need to raise their loans, and that can be very problematic for everyone in the end. So my question for you from the philosophical, I think also as well technology point of view is there, and where should be the limit of creating positive discrimination?
Could you just say the last few words again?
Yeah, is there and where is there a limit, and where should be the limit of creating positive discrimination?
Yeah, I think what you're calling positive discrimination is what is called affirmative action in some sense,
Yeah,
right? I mean, yeah. Is that the same thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
is
So
it,
affirmative action is actually a very interesting thing because it's something that exists in many countries, and it is all often debated, which is um, what are the limits? When should we be doing affirmative action? How long we should be doing affirmative action? And I think uh, I can even change it from this setting of men, women to political ideas. For example,
yeah,
today we talk about polarization, right? In the space of ideas, let's say in here in the United States, I mean, there are two prominent political views: the red view and the blue view, right? Now, what would positive discrimination mean here? So when you go to your feed of Twitter or Facebook or whatever, right? Should you only see articles by people who belong to the red group or the blue group, or there should be some articles shown to you which are also from the opposite point of view, right?
that's right.
So we can explore this, I think, in this setting where you can say, okay, if I have very strong red views, let's say, first of all, I do not have any views politically, but we are just using this
Of
as a
course.
scientific example. If I have very strong views in one direction, should you show me all articles from the other view? Should you show me all articles from my view? So then it starts depending how I form my beliefs, right? So it goes into psychology. That how do human beings form their beliefs and how do they update their beliefs? So when you see, let's say suddenly I change your world around you and start showing you only blue articles, right? Will your belief change and start moving towards blue, or will your beliefs become more red? So
Yeah.
what do you say? I'm going to ask you this question before I proceed to tell you what I would do, but let me hear you what you have to say on that, because
Well,
we are exploring the limits of positive discrimination in this context, right?
yeah, but I'm thinking about the things what you said basically, and when also like a buzzword that social networks are creating a much more bigger discrepancy between people, because you're only like seeing what some of your peers and some of your people who think like you are thinking about. But I think that's too. I think it's shallow approach, to be honest, shallow thinking about. I think that the human perception, like I think it's much deeper, not in every moment for every kind of for every person worldwide, but I think that these kind of let's say small actions like affirmative or discriminative, whatever we will like to call, somebody will call one, somebody a second, also that's a difference of opinions, of course. But personally, I believe that this is something that is still, and when we are talking about psychology, is not like I said, it's not something that we have like 100% something that's scientifically backed. We have experience, we have some of the research, but still this is not something that we have like we have studies over studies over studies, like they are defining
Yeah.
what's happening. So I think that we need to, from my point of view, I'm kind of person that I don't think that the whole world will break down if we are going to try to see what is going to happen. If this is going to be the only case why we are going to, I don't know, split into, or I don't know, create some unrest because of the social networks. I think that unrest was already there, and that the only
Mhm.
the social networks were catalyst of it. So basically, doesn't need it. I still think that technology is not good or bad. Technology is technology, like from my point of view.
I
How
mean,
you
it
use it?
accelerated it. I think two things happened. You're right. I
Yeah,
mean, all of this stuff was happening in the world of newspapers, actually.
yeah,
You
that's
know, yeah. But I think the two things that changed were the scale at which this was
Of
happening,
course.
and the rate at which this was happening. I mean, you would get one newspaper a day, right, in the morning. And that newspaper was not entirely published for you. It was published for a city, or I mean, at least a large number of people. I don't know how old you are, but I mean, a
Yeah,
newspaper, and when I was young, I mean, it was for a whole city. So the whole city is getting to see the same news. So the level of personalization that we live in, where everything is super personalized, today with these algorithms, I think what has changed is that you can receive personalized information, and and
I think
the
that what also
scale and
changed.
the rate, and you check your social media how many times a day, and it changes,
Yeah.
and people are just checking it all the time, right? Because
And
that is
one
the objective.
And one
That is the
additional question, one additional thing, not question, but one additional, like I said, what you're talking about, one additional thing that people get a chance that they couldn't get that before with the newspaper. They can express their what they are
That's
thinking
right.
at the moment in the heat of the moment, and that can be dangerous, to be honest. Like, it's not about, I'm not big fan of moderation and stuff like that, but sometimes people don't understand that moderating yourself, or being like, I don't know, not being, let's say, politically polite, or whatever you like to call this kind of thing, being normal, like assertive human being. I think that people don't understand that it doesn't you don't need to respond to everything you see on the first place. Okay, not only like fact checking, that's totally whole different story, fact checking and false news and deep fakes as well, but in the end, like, to react in the heat of the moment, like if all of us are reacting in the heat of the moment, that's how the war started, like in the middle, in the earlier centuries, like basically.
Yeah.
And people don't understand this kind of
Yeah, I
concept.
think that's a great point. That newspapers did not have give you the ability to write back your comments and send it to them,
Yeah.
right? Which everybody else can see. Today, you can actually just comment on anything and feel empowered that, look, I can say whatever I feel like in the heat of the moment to any tweet or any post or whatever, right? And you can see how the discourse degenerates very quickly. And, it's just anybody who has seen this stuff kind of sees. Yeah, so I think these platforms are also providing all kinds of opportunities for people to not exercise any kind of control. So at the end of the day, um, I mean, one can so this leads to a very basic questions. Are humans fundamentally discriminatory? Are they really, I mean, at the core, are we really biased? If we had no rules, no law, right? Would we be killing each other and just ending? I don't think so. I,
I
I
also
mean,
like, I
I
believe
mean,
in humans, but maybe I'm
yeah, I mean, because
maybe I'm a
there is
dreamer.
something, I mean, we evolved on this planet. We can take a biological point of view, right? I mean, we did not annihilate the human race. Yes, tribes fought war against each other, but there were tribes, there were a group of people who were connected with each other, and human values evolved because people understood that tribes have to survive. If people were lying to each other, for example, if lying, why is lying not a good thing? Because if you're lying, then I can't trust you as a part of a tribe member, right?
Yeah.
So everything has some utility at the end of the day in terms of the even the ethical values that we talk about. What is fundamentally wrong in lying? What is fundamentally wrong in killing somebody? What is fundamentally wrong in abusing? So I think these have origins into what makes us humans, right? And I think if you remove all law, everything, maybe there will be some temporary chaos, but then eventually I think there will come a phase where human beings at the end, I think, are peace-loving people. I mean, there is enough evidence of that. There have been wars. There will continue to be wars. There will be people continue to fight with each other. But I think right now what is happening is unprecedented, right? I mean, the war that happens on Twitter, Facebook, whatever is your favorite platform, is you see how bad it is and how ugly it gets. Um, yeah, so I don't
I
know. I
like
mean, I think,
LinkedIn the
but
most. I'm using LinkedIn
but
the most, to
but
be
just
honest.
going back to your positive. So let me say something technical also. I mean, given that I actually work on this in a scientific way.
Of
So
course.
one of the works that I did was in trying to understand exactly this limits of positive discrimination in the context of selection or hiring. So you can imagine the following simple stylized model where suppose there's an interviewer and there are, let's say, 100 candidates that the interviewer has to evaluate. Okay. And these 100 candidates, let's say, fall in two different groups. Let's call them 50 candidates in group A and 50 candidates in group B.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, the interviewer has implicit biases or unconscious biases towards group B. Okay. So what it means effectively or mathematically is that when they interact with members of the group B, when the interviewer interacts with the members of group B, it doesn't see their true utility to themselves. It can't because they're biased, So they are seeing a scaled down version of the utility. So if this person was worth, let's say, 10 units to me in actuality, because of my biases, I can only see 8 units of utility coming through.
Yeah.
Okay. So the assumption there is that each and every individual is kind of the same to me, but I can't see that because I'm biased. So one of the positive interventions is affirmative action here, which says that the interviewer must select at least a certain number of people from this group B.
Yeah.
So let's say you are the boss of the company, which is whose goal is to get the best candidates. Of course, you can't do that job, so you hire me as the interviewer, but you also see that I have problems. So what you can say is that, hey, you continue with your evaluation process, but what you must do is at the end give me a list in which there is at least, let's say, one person from group B.
Yeah, okay, I understand it.
Okay, so that's the intervention. That's a positive intervention. Now, instead of one, you could also have said 2, you could have said 3, you could have said 4, or you could have said as many as you like. So that's the mathematically different levels of positive discrimination.
Yeah, what we are doing basically on the conference, for example, we have one of the values of the conference is inclusivity and diversity, and not only in terms of the gender equality, that's one of the separate values, but in terms of we are looking that when we are building the program, we are looking that we have a certain amount of people from decision-making positions, somebody from tech lead, team leads, some amount of the professional seniors, and some amount of the professors. And that's something we said, okay, let's find like this.
Why? And you know why? Because, an interviewer or in this case, the organizer, might, if somebody is good in tech, they may not be able to evaluate other pieces of, other side of the conference effectively, right? Because we all have their own biases. If let's say you are a tech person, then you may not be able to understand and evaluate people who work in, let's say, societal aspects of data science, right? So I think that is really, so there are two ways to kind of intervene here. So you already mentioned the second intervention, which is to diversify the team of interviewers, so that now it's not just a single person evaluating every person, but it's a group of people evaluating. And the assumption is that once you have the group which is diverse enough, this implicit bias will cancel out, and eventually the scores that you're going to get are going to be the true scores of
course.
And so that's good, right? So yeah, I think here what I considered was these affirmative action or positive discrimination constraints, where you said you asked the interviewer to kind of, okay, in the end, you must show me at least one person from group B. And we showed that this strategy actually improves the overall utility of the process, which is, I think, something that's pretty surprising, and in some sense a justification of positive reinforcement. And we also looked at mathematically what happens when you increase this representation constraint from 1 to 2 to 3, from 0. So no representation to 1. And there we looked at a belief model. So when the interviewer is actually interacting with people from groups, we modeled how they update their beliefs, and we showed that once they are exposed to one candidate versus 0 candidate, their beliefs change very rapidly about this other group.
I think this is top. This is for me at least. It makes complete sense because people who are doing sometimes when you are doing your job, I'm not going to like bash anybody, but most of the time people when they are doing same job over and over time, the efficiency of that job it becomes a little bit lower because you're doing business as usual. Some of the things that you were looking at the beginning of your job, I don't know. That's why the accidents in the factories happen because people do have a tendency that to relax themselves, not think about how to do be the most let's say efficient, and adding new variable in the system in the short term, I think that can boost creativity and can boost also with together with the some excellence and knowledge that you actually gain through the years of your working in some of the field in this matter like HR and recruiting. You will get like much better results, and in the end of course it's going to end up like end up like having like more diversified teams inside of it of the companies, and diversification is some of the things that I think that we have started talking much more than we did like a few years ago, and I think still we are not on the level we should be like, and we can see what is happening on different networks like that. In the end, like when everything is good, everybody can have like a very cool teams, but when the I don't know, when the wind goes south, you just like first one you are going to like to become unemployed are the people from this like and that's basically showing for my side, it's showing one thing, that a real like valuation in the inside of the company of this person is still more of the talking, not walking the walk. And that's I think that's the missed opportunity I can see like from technology point of view. And I think that this is perfect like like answer for me to ask you a little bit more about the multidisciplinary teams as well, because we have talked that one of the things how we can affect bias is to have like multidisciplinary teams. And being said that, like just in one sentence, that means that we have people of different backgrounds, not only like in the terms of like somebody from psychology, sociology, and technology inside of the same team, but also I don't know, somebody from creative teams, like some artists, for example, or somebody doing marketing, just to have like, and that can be cross-functional matrix team actually that can work together. So basically,
Mhm.
do you think this is something that we should strive in the future? And what do you
Yeah.
think? What is the impact that this kind of approach can have on the society, especially through AI?
Oh, I think this is very, very important. And I think multidisciplinarity comes at two levels. So, as we talked about, anytime we are going to create an algorithm, artificial algorithm, we will have to create a way to measure human beings, to take decisions on them. And when we start talking about measurements, measurements are nothing but um, encode human values, right? I mean, if let's say, for example, I say that the person with, let's say, the best soccer player is the one who has scored the most number of goals in all of World Cups. I mean, I guess soccer is something which is popular in Europe, right? So this is so see the metric that I say is how to define the best soccer player. It is to say, okay, the person who scored the most number of goals in the World Cup. Now, somebody can say, no, I don't care about World Cup. Let's talk about UEFA Championship. Somebody said,
Mhm.
no, let's look at all the goals possible. So, how do we come to this agreement as to what the objectives of optimization are? Most machine learning algorithms, most AI algorithms do not come with the objective. The objective has to be chosen,
Yeah.
right? And so when I say, okay, so let's say, so if I work for something like Twitter or Google or Facebook or whatever, I say I want engagement. What does engagement mean?
Yeah.
Right? How to quantify that? Because we will have to quantify that. And in this quantification, I think multidisciplinarity plays a role to make sure that all the parties who are going to get affected by this output of this algorithm come together and say, hey, but if you do this, then you're going to leave out this group of people. If you do that, then you're going to leave out that group of people. So that discussion already has to happen at a very high level
Yeah.
when the objectives are being set up. Okay. Number two, when now we have figured out the objective and we are modeling the problem, when we are trying to design an algorithm, it's like designing a house, it's an architecture. And you can even think about this in the context of architecture, if you like. That as I just said, I gave an example of a problem where I needed to model human beliefs, right? I'm not an expert in psychology. I don't know how to model human beliefs, how they change their beliefs. So I need help from psychology. I can propose interventions. I can propose all kinds of silly interventions with no policymaker will agree that this is something that we can act. I mean, like if I say, something really bizarre, maybe that everybody should drive at 10 miles per hour, right? Then no policymaker will come and say, this is something which is feasible. So, but you see what I'm saying is that, for example, if you go on your Twitter or Facebook, you don't get a sense of what content you are consuming, how much time you spent on Twitter, how much they don't show you this information. Today when you pick up any food item, you see on the back there is a nutritional label. It tells you how many calories, how many carbs.
This is
So
excellent point.
you see, you drive a car, it has a dashboard, right? Can you respect any speed limits if you did not have a speedometer?
Of course not, because that's
So
totally relevant.
right. So I think, but as a technologist, as a computer scientist, I'm not trained to do all this thing. I'm trained to design a good car, a good algorithm, right? So multidisciplinarity brings in all these other perspectives, because how humans are going to consume this information, how this new technology will impact and interact with existing policy and law. What are the philosophical implications of this? What are the business implications of this? You need the whole thing. In even most simple sounding technological productions, I would say, you need fairly multidisciplinary teams. But of course, as you said, that these if there's when push comes to shove and teams are being downsized, these kind of quote unquote interdisciplinary people are the first to go, right?
And yeah, and like I said,
I
that's
mean,
basically showing what is the real.
everybody. Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example which I'm sure you will relate to. If you are, let's say, building your house, right? It depends. You have money to have an architect. You will hire an architect. Now, architect is not an artist, right? Maybe you said if I had more money, I would also want an artist, because I want to feel good in my house, right? I want to have this certain feeling in this room, which an architect can't provide you. That's not their job, right? And so you can imagine adding more and more components. It depends how much budget you have. So, but the bottom line is, if you want just a home to live, you just need a box which covers you, so that if there's rain that doesn't fall on you, the snow doesn't fall on you, and you're warm. I mean, what are you looking for? What is the definition of a home? The rest
Yeah,
is all like what colors I should put on the wall, and what furniture I should get. I mean, these are accessories at the end of the day, right? So
yeah,
similarly, we can view technology in that sense, that I mean, if the core job is if Google's core job is revenue through advertising, yeah, I mean, that's what they would focus on until there's law and policy which says that no, you can earn your money, but you can't reveal people's privacy, you cannot discriminate. you
yeah.
know and and the yeah, and the lawmakers also need to catch up on developing effective measures to curtail these technologies. Like maybe you can have a car which does 1 mile per gallon,
Yeah.
right? Is
And
not great for the environment, but yeah. So uh, you see that people who are just computer scientists building technology are not able to answer many of these questions, actually,
yeah,
just like
and
an architect will not be able to answer many of these questions. So it is natural, there's nothing, no problem. It's one discipline.
I
But
also
since
have
something is
like for the.
affecting so many things, so we have to take into account.
Yeah, I think
uh,
also one additional like mine thought in my mind is that it's from the one side it can also be, but also I think that from sometimes from the other side that people who are doing like I don't know, psychology, etc. When you're doing multidisciplinary teams, I think that basically there is also that's something also that can be an issue, just to find what can be the perfect match, basically, and what is the, like I said, what can be like to understand what, like I said, I think it's perfect, like a sentence, to understand what is the goal, and after that to work towards it. For the end, what I wanted to just for the conclusion and closing round of the questions, I wanted to ask for you maybe to recommend to our listeners maybe one book that can help them to be more involved in this topic, and one additional book we would like to recommend to them to read in their free time, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I think there is one of the first books I looked at, and now there are many of them. But if you are completely unaware of this topic, there is this book called Weapons of Math Destruction. So it's a play of words, weapons of mass destruction. I guess you know what that means. These are right weapons of math like mathematics, destruction. Also, I would recommend this documentary, which is available, called Coded Bias. I think these are two good places to start off your journey into understanding various ways and various ways in which this modern technology is flawed, and how we can incorporate human values a bit better into things that algorithms and technology which affects our life.
Thank you so much for this ending sentence. For sure, we are going to send these two links to our listeners, so they can also check it out, like in the follow-up email. What is going to happen next? I would like to invite all of our guests to switch to stream 1, where in 15 minutes we shall start with the next keynote talk delivered by Seth Dobrin, who is a former chief AI scientist at IBM, and he's founder of Quant AI. So basically, he's going to talk a very interesting topic that can be related to this one, and that is what is the use of ethical AI. Thank you so much, and hopefully, Nisheeth, we will meet again sometime soon, like in person. So thank you so much, and thank you for
Thank
the
you
talk.
so much, Alexander, and I wish everybody the best. And see you sometime soon. Bye.